there was a report from the United Nations E-commerce Index 2020.
Okay.
And according to its ranking, Nigeria has dropped from 88 in 2019 to 94 last year for 2020 for countries in readiness for e-commerce.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So according to, they had different criteria by which they were able to get the scores. Okay, I said so. They had different criteria by which they were able to score Nigeria, of course. And actually, one of the scores, I'm going to mention them right now. Yes, it's here. On access to the internet, they scored Nigeria 26, secure internet services 36, which was quite low. Then for the share of individuals with an account, 40. Then UPU postal reliability was 83. Now, for these scores, would you agree with this scores given to Nigeria based on access to internet and secured internet services?
Okay, so thank you very much for the question. I'll have to have you reiterate a couple of things, but I will just answer from what I understood of what you just said. First of
Okay.
all, the United Nations E-commerce Index has noted that e-commerce in Nigeria was in a decline in 2020.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do I agree with that statement, or if not, why not? Is your question correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, 2020.
Okay, my specific question was with respect to on access to the internet and the secure internet internet services. The scores, those were the lowest scores in the total for Nigeria.
Okay, so when you say secure internet access, are you talking about the security behind when you are browsing, or I'm trying to understand that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 2020 was quite a challenging year. As we all know, that was the COVID year. We all had Vision 2020 with 2020, I'll put it that way. It caught all of us unawares. Nigeria as a country was steadily building up its internet base as NCC was trying to meet, and it did meet it and surpassed its target of getting broadband penetration into Nigeria. But it was not enough for what happened when COVID hit. When COVID hit and people had to basically stay at home, a lot of Nigerians were not ready for what would happen. And I'll especially say the ISPs were also not ready, because Nigeria has a population of over 200 million people. And if 1% of those people sit up one day and say that they all want to get online at the same time, if you're not ready to handle the traffic, it will not bode well for your business. And I am sure that when all of us had to stay at home, the only thing available to many of us was the internet access.
Yeah.
Netflix saw a spike in subscriptions. Even the normal models of DSTV getting a dish, they had to adjust and also increase the amount of people getting DSTV now. They had to start streaming their digital TV over the internet. So a lot of people were starting to use the internet for more than just sending emails. They were using it for their livelihood now. They had to use it to communicate, to make phone calls, to check up on loved ones far and near, to see people that they normally would probably leave their house to go and see. Now they can't leave their house. They have to see them through the medium that we're using right now. But if the infrastructure was not on ground for it, and the pricing structure was not adequate to allow us to do it, then they won't do it. They just cannot afford to do it. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
So with regard to security when you're using the internet, I'm not sure I agree with the statements by the United Nations, because I don't know what their matrix was, how they measured that. What exactly are they measuring? Are they measuring the security with regard to someone eavesdropping on your phone call or your emails, or um, is it how secure is it from the government who is listening to you? I'm not sure how to answer that question. Um, that is my statement with regard to that. With regard to actual e-commerce and business, a lot of Nigerian businesses, all they had was a website. They didn't have an e-commerce presence, and even the e-commerce people, the people who were selling online, the infrastructure, the way their businesses were built, there was not enough infrastructure on ground for COVID related e-commerce, because non-contact required a lot of mobility with regard to logistical delivery of your goods and services. And there were hardly any logistics companies that were operating at the time of COVID. Of course, the case has changed now. There's so many one-man businesses who have gone into logistics. If you owned a motorcycle, you started a logistics company. There are even aggregators being created right now. They are all they do is they don't own a motorcycle themselves. They just partner with all these individual motorcycle owners and get them businesses that will use their services, and then they get a commission for the transaction that's taking place.
So
So
they are like middlemen, basically.
yes, like a middleman business, exactly, like Uber for Uber for logistics. You know what I mean?
But for
So
imagine.
um, that has taken off in a big way now, because they obviously saw the need, because a lot of businesses have realized that COVID has pushed them to have to use the internet, not just to show that they are around, but to actually start using the internet to make money, to save money, and to make money. A lot of businesses, where originally they would never have said work from home, we don't trust you because if you are at home, you will not do our work, right? Now they've been
Yeah.
forced to have their staff work from home. And of course, they have to build in safeguards to make sure that their staff are working. And what's happening is the staff are working probably 3 or 4 times more harder than if they had to come to the office. Because you know what? You're not spending 2 hours in traffic anymore to come to the office. When you leave the office to go for a meeting, you're not wasting 1 hour in traffic to get to the meeting. So it's possible where in a normal day before COVID, you only had 2 meetings a day. Now you can fit in 4 or 5 meetings back to back to back to back, and you haven't left your house. You understand what I mean? So
Yes.
in that sense, that's also e-commerce, because you know what? You're doing business over the internet. It might not be buying and selling, but you're setting up your business and preparing for the time when I'm going to send you the contract for you to sign and then send you the invoice. It is e-commerce, and it's all due to COVID. But prior to COVID, we were not ready for this. The infrastructure, I mean, before this interview, we were having problems connecting with each other one to one. That just shows you that we're still trying to get there.
Yeah.
By changing from Zoom to Skype, we have lowered our bandwidth so that it can we can actually meet with the minimum standard for this conversation to take place. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
And that's probably because we're doing it during peak hours. 1:30, 2 o'clock, a lot of people are using the internet right now, very likely in your area and in my area. So our allocation of bandwidth has been minimized. So we can't utilize the full range. But if we had this interview in the evening, 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'm very sure that on Zoom it would be seamless. It would go through without a problem. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, according to NCC, basic internet subscription has grown by over 53 million in the past 5 years. Yet, according to the ranking by the United Nations, we are still rated low on access to the internet. Why do you think so?
Okay, so how the United Nations measures and how NCC measures are totally different. How NCC measures, personally, I will have, as one individual, I have a 9 mobile line. I use it with mobile data. I have an MTN line. I use it with mobile data. I have an Airtel line. I use it with mobile data. With as one person, I've already fit the criteria for 3 people going online. My phones are online all the time, and very likely I will renew them every month. So as far as NCC is concerned, if they were trying to get one person, they've got 3 people now. Am I making sense to you there?
Yes,
So
you are.
if it was just to get one person, but as a Nigerian, I know that in certain areas I won't have signal. Certain networks, they have better deals, uh, stuff like that. So I take advantage of all that, right? I'm at work. I have fiber at work, so my phones are not the ones I'm using for internet. I use the office internet. But once I leave the office, depending on where I am, depending on what signal I'm getting, I change to whichever network I can use. And then, so the penetration is not the statistics that NCC is getting are not realistic enough, because the penetration, they're getting the wrong numbers. Because if one person is being registered as 3 people, then they're not getting the right penetration. If I'm making sense to you,
Yes,
right?
you are.
But the way the United Nations are probably checking on the penetration of the internet is they're looking at the population of Nigeria as a whole. Population of Nigeria of 200 million people, right? Now, how many people out of 200 million are actually online? Forget the medium they're using, whether they're using telephones or they're using. At this point in time, my phones are not part of the whole equation now. It's just me personally. How am I online? Am I able to send emails? Am I able to communicate with people using the internet? Me personally. Now that's probably how they are checking on it. Now, if that's the case, then a lot of people that even have smartphones that have their mobile data switched off because it costs them too much to run mobile data unless they want to now use mobile data. It goes against the grain for the United Nations. So that person is not online. They might have a smartphone with data, but data is switched off. But that person is not online. You know what I mean? That person is saving their data because it is too expensive to use it. I mean, how many people do you know with WhatsApp? You send a WhatsApp to them, it doesn't deliver until in the evening when they switch the data back on again, because they don't want to be running their data and downloading stuff without their knowledge, because they don't want to have to spend money on data every week. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So, I mean, that can probably explain the discrepancies between the two of them. But on the whole, as a person, as an individual, I mean, I have seen how the internet from 10 years ago compares to today. The cost of the internet 10 years ago compared to today. The technology that we're using to give us faster internet 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as little as 2 years ago compared to today. There has been a positive move by Nigeria. It is getting better and better and better. Many people will still complain, but as far as I'm concerned, it is getting better and better and better, and it can only get better. With technology changing all the time, Nigeria is leapfrogging the technology and trying to make sure things are getting better for everybody. I mean, at the end of the day, right now, fiber is now starting to roll out all over Nigeria. Well, starting off with
Sure.
Lagos and Abuja. I mean, by the time fiber gets into the whole system, I think we will start to see a big difference in costs of internet access and the relative ease of which people can get online, not just with their mobile phones. Then, of course, you have to remember that there are a lot of people who cannot afford a smartphone, so they have to use what we call a balasa phone, a dumb phone, you know. But
Yeah.
but even the technology is making it possible for them to still take advantage of social media without having a smartphone by using USSD codes. I mean, the networks are
Yeah.
tying in, so things are moving fast in the third world, in Africa, in Nigeria, moving at a point where even the West, they're not using this technology because they don't see the need for it. But we see the need for it, and we are adopting it, and we're adapting it to use for our own scenarios.
Okay. Now, just like you mentioned about the quality of internet services, you said it's improved. Now, do you think the quality of the internet service, based on these rankings and all, is a hindrance to people embracing e-commerce
So,
based on the rankings? Yes.
okay, so the quality of the internet access of people will obviously determine whether or not people will be able to use the services available. So, for example, if you're streaming your TV stations on radio, narrow band, very likely you will get a lot of buffering, and it can be very frustrating. And if that's the case, you will try it out for a little while because that's what everybody's doing. But
Yeah.
after a little while, you get frustrated. You'll shut it down. You'll go back to what works for you. If it's the DSTV dish, then let it be so. If someone says, "Oh, it's on Netflix," be like, "Man, I tried that thing. It just kept buffering. It was frustrating. I didn't want to try it anymore." Because maybe their internet access where they are is not good. You understand what I mean? So,
Yes.
so all our ISPs are trying to make their internet speeds faster and also cheaper. Obviously, competition is good. So,
Okay. Okay, but for what about, I'm asking specifically for those involved in business, e-commerce. So the
okay.
quality of internet services, don't you believe it's somehow, of course, it will be like a deterrent to those that want to go into e-commerce because of the internet services with the interruptions and the issues, the challenges so far.
Well, the main challenge really with e-commerce is logistics because, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Here in Nigeria, our e-commerce is not the same as the e-commerce of America, and we can't compare ourselves with them because their internet access is a lot more advanced. But here, I am in the field of providing e-commerce functionality to businesses. And so when I go to market to a client and I say, "Are you ready to go online?" They say no, they don't have content, they don't have information. But I tell them, but they've been running their business for more than 2 or 3 years. It's not about how much information you can put on the internet. It's if you can get to your customers. Now, I tell customers, for example, my customers, I tell them, look, even if you're not ready to put a singing and dancing website, just put a few pictures of the products that you sell, descriptions of what they are, and your contact details.
Mhm.
If a customer goes to Google and does a search for Adire in Surulere, and your small shop in the shopping mall that has a 1 or 2 page website comes up, they will see examples of your materials, which might not even be up
Exactly.
to date. but it has your telephone number, your email address. There might even be a form. They fill in the form, or they call the phone number and say, look, I'm looking for something that is this color of this material, and this is my budget. Can you provide it? Now, what happens is if you, as a businessman or woman, says yes, you can provide it, the system in Nigeria is already set up with Paystack, Flutterwave. You can set up for free payment pages for your business. So you tell your customer, I will text you a URL. You can go to this my Paystack page and pay me 15K, including your delivery charge. So from your home, you can do this. You haven't gone to a website to do shopping carts, to do payments, and then do InterSwitch or MasterCard of this. You've just gone straight to a Paystack page and put in your card details and a description of what you're paying for. And the person who's going to receive that money will get an SMS or an email saying that they've received the money. They can call you and say, no problem, we will contact our logistics riders. Now, because of COVID, there's so many bikes that are doing logistics delivery from point to point, right? We're still in the early stages because I'm sure many of them are not even insured. So if you give your product to one of these bike riders, the insurance that covers the bike from accidents might not cover the value of your product, but you want to get the product out to your customer. So you start somewhere. You understand what I mean? We will get there. We will get to a point where all these guys that have started logistics companies have to register with some sort of over a governing body and prove that they have insurance that will cover whatever they are carrying. We will get there. But for the time being, at least we can actually get businesses to take payments virtually. Banks even provide you with USSD payments functionality. You can do *737 blah 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 bank transfer to the person that you want to buy from. You understand what I mean? And they will now deliver to you. That's e-commerce. That's e-business. That is in motion right now in Nigeria. So much so, more than even in the West. In the West, they are so used to using the internet, the websites, and doing it that way, that their banks do not have the same type of functionality that our banks have with USSD codes, with bank transfers, with mobile apps to do instant transfers from one bank to another bank. It's only now that even in the UK that they started doing it, but I'm sure even in Europe, they don't have that functionality. They have the functionality of you start a transfer, it takes 2 or 3 days before it gets to someone's account. So we've already leapfrogged the technology to make stuff work faster and more efficiently here. And because of security, these things have to be instant. You can't as a business person start sending your product out before you've confirmed that you received the money, because you might never receive the money. You understand what I mean? So it has a positive growth for Nigeria with regard to e-commerce when COVID hit us. That's my opinion.
Okay. Concerning one of the points you made, concerning payments between a customer and, of course, the seller, and of course the e-payments, the payment companies like Paystack, they have been issues which I'm not sure if I would attribute if it's an issue security in internet services issue or cyber attacks or something, but issues where the customer has paid to the end and hello, can you hear me, sir?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me? You can hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay, I asked concerning one of the points you made. So I want to be sure if this is an issue concerning internet security. When a buyer makes payments to a seller and the company in between, either the banks or the payment companies, they say they don't get the money doesn't get to the end to the seller. the seller doesn't receive it, and the payment companies say the money is not with them. So eventually, isn't this one of the reasons why customer? Do you think it has like a repercussion with people wanting to do online transactions and online e-commerce payments?
Okay, so what happens in situations when a transaction takes place, especially when it comes to finance, there are methods that have to be followed so that the people's money is secure and people's money is tracked. So when a transaction begins, if the transaction does not complete, it rolls back. So if, for example, I try to send money to you from my bank, it leaves my bank account electronically, right? But you do not confirm receipt
Yes.
of the funds, right? The
Exactly.
banks have functionality that allows them to trace where that money is, but these functionalities are not instant. That's why most banks will tell you that give 24 to 72 hours, because what happens is the transaction will time out and roll back. Now, yes, that does affect e-commerce because the person selling you the product will not release their product without confirmation of payment, right? But
Okay.
we are getting better and better at how to handle this. Now, this normally happens with interbank transfers because you're doing a transfer across the network, right? But usually, if you're going to use
Yes.
a third party like QuickTeller or um, Paystack or Flutterwave, what happens is the transaction begins, and not only SMS is used to confirm payment, but emails. And usually,
Emails.
if I start a transaction on Paystack, for example, I mean I don't work for Paystack. I use them quite a lot, so that's why I can talk from experience. An email is sent to the seller.
Okay.
You have received 20K. Now, that money, that 20K might not be in his account now, but it is in the system with Paystack. It's as good as he has that money. He can release his goods because he's received that confirmation. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
So it works with people who are willing to trust the system. Obviously, there are people, for example, when Visa, debit, and Mastercard started working as POSs in shops. What would happen is when you pay the shop doesn't get the money for 72 hours, but they still have to release you and the goods to go. So initially, it was a big problem
Yes.
for a lot of people because they said that they don't trust the system. They are not sure they will get their money. Now they would prefer for you to go to the ATM and withdraw the money and bring the cash because they know that the cash they have it. But if you use a POS, the money, although they have receipts to say that the money has been paid, the bank account has not been credited
Yes.
instantly. So it was a
For them.
problem for them. But that was because there was a learning process to learn to trust the system. But once you trust the system, you can rely on the efficiency of the system and the fact that the system will bring you more business. Yes, there's a delay in getting your money, but you will get the money. As long as you have the receipt.
Okay.
That's why they say take your declined receipts to the bank if you have been debited, but the transaction was still declined. If you have the receipt, the bank will get you your money back. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now the final question. Do global rankings like this, the United Nations E-Commerce Index 2020, do they have strong effects on countries' economy in terms of investment, like particularly like Nigeria in this case?
Well, I would say yes. I think any international body that has clout that comes and says, "Oh, we've checked your country's index for internet penetration, and we find that it is lacking." This is a chance for people who are in the business of providing internet in third world countries to come and say, oh, why is it lacking? Is it topology? Is it that you don't have cables, you don't have fiber? Is it that you don't have the technology? Or is it lack of funds? How can we help you and at the same time make money? Because everybody is looking for a way of increasing their technology with regard to information, because information is power. And if you control information, you control the power. And if you can increase the amount of information flowing in your country locally, you can increase the GDP of that country without having to plant a single thing. If I don't know if I'm making sense to you. If you know how to, if it's possible
Yes, I
for
understand.
for a foreign body to come and tell you that we have looked at your country, compared it to other countries at the same level, and found your country is lacking, your country will step up. How are we lacking? How
Okay.
can we make ourselves better? Who can we talk to make ourselves better? Are there local talents that we can send to get the training to come back and build up?
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that a good government will look into. This is why, for example, prior to 4 or 5 years ago, we only had NITEL. 7 years ago, NITEL submarine cable. It was not enough for a country of 200 million. Now MTN has their own cable, Glo has their own cable, Main One has their own cable. I mean, there's surplus internet. Now, it is the last mile. And people are seeing there are a lot more ISPs sprouting because they have seen that
Okay.
there is business available in Nigeria with regard to getting the internet from the last mile to the customer.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. We
Thank
have
you.
been talking with Mr. Destiny Amana. He is the president of Nigerian Internet Group. He's been speaking on Nigerians' low ranking according to the United Nations E-Comments Index of 2020, that Nigeria had dropped from 88 to 94 in countries for readiness e-comments. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye bye.